Coogan Cassius for iFall TV in association with Mackley's Gym Marbella. It's Wednesday the 3rd of June.
June
already. And you've had your first big show of the year?
Apparently so.
After one of your big shows usually, I like to come in and dissect what's just happened, because after the show is not usually enough time for you to really to go into it. The 3 press conferences after the fight the other day. So obviously almost a year and a bit ago we were sort of talking about Froch Groves 2, and it was all really about one fight, and it just took over everything. A year later you've had a big show in a different way, haven't you? A more collectively big show.
Yeah. Firstly, to anyone that's just eaten, I'm sorry that my legs are on show.
Yeah, why are you dressed like this?
Last night, I was sitting on the sofa and Kevin Mitchell texted me and said, "Do you fancy a run tomorrow at 8 in the morning?" And I thought, no. And then I thought, he's just been bashed up in a fight. His eyes are everywhere, yet he's going running. So get off your arse and go with him. And I turned up to the gym, Tony Sims, Kevin Mitchell, Darren Barker and some other geezer called Bryn, who's a mate of ours. And we did the run, and then we did sparring, body sparring. And I got absolutely battered. Barker just tonked me everywhere. And this absolute animal came in and just destroyed me. So apologies for the legs, I'll try and keep them out of shot. But they ain't bad, look, decent quads and calves. So yes, Saturday was one of them nights, like, everything just went to plan. I mean, not in terms of results, quite a lot of our guys lost, but in terms of what we expected, what we hoped for, what we anticipated, everything from start to finish, you know, from John Wayne Hibbert against Dave Ryan, which was contender for fight of the year, you know, up until obviously Mitchell Linares, breathtaking. Selby's performance was incredible. Ryder Blackwell, Cardle Evans, Brooke Gavin, AJ was out of this world. You know, it had everything, and it's kind of like, I don't know whether that's the way the big show's going to go in the future, because you rightfully said, a year ago we were sitting here talking about one fight, even though on the DeGale bill we had AJ, on the Froch Groves bill we had AJ, we had DeGale in a big fight, McDonald, Mitchell, but they weren't in fights like they were in on Saturday night. And it's kind of made me feel like the feedback has kind of made me feel like, is it all about the main event? I think when you look at pay-per-view shows and doing pay-per-view shows, I think to hit the big numbers, you know, what we see with Froch Groves, and you know, you need that big marquee fight. But what we've found is that the last 2 pay-per-views, Bellew Cleverly, it was disappointing. Yeah, I think the undercard on this was on a different level, but the main event for Bellew Cleverly was probably, well, I think it was more anticipated than Brooke Gavin was, but it disappointed. Brooke Gavin was decent. I'm not saying it was the greatest fight of all time, but because of the quality you had underneath, you'd already got your value for money before the main event even came on. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's nice to have that backup, and the undercard didn't play out like that for Bellew Cleverly, and perhaps the fights weren't competitive enough. Perhaps it was more marquee names. But, you know, I think that was a pay-per-view on Saturday for boxing fans, rather than your casual punter. You know, people weren't talking about, you know, you're out in black cabs, you're out in the streets. People weren't talking about Brooke Gavin. People were talking about AJ. You know, but I remember when Bellew Cleverly came around, who's going to win? I can't stand that Bellew. I hope that Cleverly. I love that Scouse. You know, everyone had an opinion on it, whereas this one was more about the quality of the bill itself, rather than, you know, the hype or a marquee fight. Or sometimes you look at me like,
no, I'm listening.
What are you talking about?
No, I know what you're talking about.
I do waffle on.
I know what you're talking about.
Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, no, I completely understand.
I mean, pay-per-view nights, you know, the pleasing thing about Saturday was that everyone got value for money. I don't think I've had one complaint. Okay, obviously we had complaints when we announced it was pay-per-view, And we were right up against it because it was 4 weeks after Pacquiao Mayweather, but we'd already had a plan to do that show then. And obviously Sky picked up Pacquiao Mayweather, so it was always going to be difficult, but it's just so pleasing. It's pleasing when people get value for money and you get the response that you got. Moving forward, you know, I think pay-per-views, the general plan for pay-per-views are always that they are marquee fights. But the response that we had from Saturday sort of enables us to build similar cards that give fighters like Mitchell Linares could never, ever, ever have happened over here without it being a pay-per-view card. We couldn't have afforded it. Linares got a fortune and Kevin ended up getting good money. And I'm so glad, by the way, that Kevin Mitchell got great money for that fight because he deserved it. And even Gradovic, Selby, I couldn't have taken Gradovic to Wales for that fight. So we're giving fighters opportunities that we wouldn't be able to do, and the public are contributing to British boxing making that happen. It's not a case of, and if people really think that Matchroom Sports made a fortune on Saturday night, they're wrong. But the fighters got well paid, our fighters got the opportunity, and we provided a great night for British boxing. Every now and again, and if it means that you're going to have to pay a little bit extra for that quality, I'm not adverse to it. I mean, I know that might not go down very well, but if we're going to take this sport forward, now we can go spin off the back of that. Selby can go and defend in Wales. Mitchell can come again on his own show on normal Sky Sports, challenging for the world title. AJ in a big fight in September. You know, so I know it's difficult to say, trust me, but we've got a plan. And Saturday worked. It worked really well, and that was the most pleasing thing.
When you look at your last 3 pay-per-view events, so the Royal Britannia, Bellew Cleverley and Froch Groves, I kind of would put Bellew and Cleverley in between the Froch Groves and that, in terms of Bellew Cleverley was a bigger fight to the mass appeal than Brook Gavin.
Yeah.
But you had a better undercard and a better selection of fights on Royal Britannia.
Yeah.
Froch Groves 2 was just an outstanding main event.
It was a good undercard. I mean,
it was a good undercard, but it took over.
Yeah,
it took over everything else. So
you didn't need an undercard for Froch Groves.
No. But do you not think moving forward you need to sort of take bits of those last 3 pay-per-views? Is it too optimistic to do a Froch Groves-esque event with a Royal Britannia undercard?
I think you're not going to hit the numbers, you know. I mean, isn't it? Pay-per-view numbers aren't released. Bellew Cleverley and Royal Britannia both did very well on the pay-per-view. Of course not, you know, Froch Groves numbers, but you're not going to hit 6, 7, 8, 9, a million buys without a major main event, you know. And Royal Britannia, although it was a tough sell, it didn't feel like a tough sell to me because I had the passion about that card as a boxing fan. I could have sat there with you for hours talking about that card before it happened and every fight and how it was going to play out, you know. Bellew Cleverley, your man on the street, and this is, I guess, where we go back to the casuals and the hardcore. The casual market is massive and the hardcore market is smaller. So therefore, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out that you have to appeal to the casuals to hit the big numbers, okay? And I'm not sure that the casuals necessarily bought into Royal Britannia like they did for Bellew Cleverley. But I think the hardcores bought into Royal Britannia much more than they did to Bellew Cleverley. Do you know what I'm saying? So for the man on the street, the general punch, they go, oh, Bellew Cleverley, that's a grudge match. Why, it's got James DeGallen. Oh, it's got George Groves on. Oh, it's got Anthony Joshua on. Oh, it's got Scott Quigg on. They didn't necessarily look at the fights they were in. On Saturday, Kevin Mitchell, to the man on the street, I remember him, I think, you know. Lee Selby, no. Do you know what I'm saying? AJ ended up being, you know, one of the main fights on the bill, but the hardcore went Selby Gradovic, Mitchell Linares. You know, even Ryan Hibbert, wow, Ryder Blackwell, great fight. But of course, to the casuals, never heard of them. Never heard of anything before 8 o'clock on that bill. So it's hard to sell to the man on the street 4 championship fights that could be absolute wars when they've never even heard of them.
Is there not enough money, like I said, to put on a massive main event with an undercard or fights like you did on Raw?
It would be, you'd be taking a punt and you'd be reliant on obviously increasing the pay-per-view numbers. And let me tell you, that was a punt on Saturday night. It wasn't like, we weren't sitting there going, we're going to absolutely have it off tonight. We were sitting there going, we need to hit a certain amount of numbers to break even. Anyone can look at the kind of figures that these fighters were on. Kell Brook is earning big money now, right? Anthony Joshua, Selby, Mitchell, Linares, Gradovic, even down to the Ryder Blackwell won the purse bid for what? 90 grand? I don't know. You know, the wage bill on that show, the purses were massive. And we needed to hit certain numbers just to be okay. But it didn't matter because 2 of our boys were in a British title fight. Kell Brook was back out. AJ was building, all these other fights. So, you know, we're always calculating what we do, but we do take risks. And Saturday was a risk. And we were rewarded, not just because the numbers were decent, but because it was great. So, even if we would have done our money on Saturday night, I would have still sat there and gone, you know what? Oh well, what a great night. I'll remember that night, you know, and I hope that the fans that went as well will remember that night for a great night of boxing. And the response we've had, you know, we talked about this the other day in an interview, it's not when you get praise, oh yeah, it's just nice. It's nice for people to say, do you know what? I had a great night. I remember when people would tweet me after Wembley saying, that was one of the best nights of my life. It's like, really? You know, and people on Saturday, that was one of the best sport events ever from start to finish. Production, the atmosphere, the fights. And that, as a promoter, that's all really, you know, it doesn't get any better than that. Just like someone saying to you, Coogan, I've got to say, I've been watching your interviews lately. You're getting better and better. And you know that interview we did with XYZ? That was brilliant. It's like,
that
gives you a little,
interview with XYZ.
You know.
Are you working towards a point in the next 6 years, hopefully sooner rather than later, where you have to stop or want to stop justifying why things are on pay-per-view?
No, because people are having to pay for it. You always, when you create a monster, Froch Groves, no one ever said to me, why is that on pay-per-view? They did for Froch Groves 1, but not for Froch Groves 2. But it's okay because they've got the right to. If they're having to put their hand in their pocket, it's not like you just expect them and take them for granted. You know, why is this on pay-per-view? Oh, shut up, mate. It's $16.95. Stop being tight. Put your hand in. That's not. You can't be like that with a customer. All these people that are moaning at me or support, they're all customers. And the customer, unfortunately, as the saying goes, is always right. So you have to have discussions with them, debates, and you have to sell your side of the story. And out of the pay-per-views that I've promoted, Froch Kessler, Froch Groves 1, Froch Groves 2, Bellew Cleverly, and Royal Britannia. 5.
Hold on.
What?
Missing one.
Harrison Hay. That wasn't my promotion.
What?
No, leave it in. I just had Augie Harrison.
Oh, well, okay.
That was a Hay mate, that wasn't it?
Oh, okay.
Listen, drop me right out of that one. No, but it wasn't. I just had Augie. But I've promoted 5 pay-per-view events. I would say 1 has been disappointing. So I've got a decent track record, but I do think that, again, these stacking the cards, I don't think that's necessarily the strategy. I want to make bigger headline fights. The only problem is when you make a bigger headline fight, that's got to be a good fight, because when you sink all the money into the headline fight, you can't deliver what you delivered on Saturday night, you know? And then you're at risk that if the main event, say that on Saturday night it was Brooke Gavin and some other bits and pieces, people wouldn't have been happy because Brooke Gavin wasn't this unbelievable all-out war. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's, for me, what you're selling is tune in at 5 o'clock and watch this for 7 hours. You will not be disappointed. How many tune in at 5 o'clock? I don't know. But most people would have watched at least Selby, Mitchell, AJ, Brook. We only had one complaint. And that's the key. That's how you get people coming back. But the most pleasing thing is people saying, wow, when's the next one? Not pay-per-view, forget the pay-per-view bit. When's the next event? When you back in London? When's AJ back? When's Selby coming home? When's Mitchell fighting for the world title again? You know? People are interested, and that's the most pleasing thing.
So, I mean, looking back over the weekend, I think the results suggested that the 80% of the card were genuine 50-50 fights. I think probably with the exception of Joshua Johnson, which we just wanted to know whether it wasn't a 50-50. We
just wanted intriguing
to see if we could stop him. He did within 2 rounds, but Kevin Mitchell obviously was. Just explain what you said to me the other day again. He was. How close was he to?
Well, I kept saying, and actually one thing that's making me feel better is, I think when you look at the cut that stopped the Gradovic fight, this was 3 times worse. And I think it's always easy to look back on what could have been, and if Victor Lothran, the referee, would have stopped that fight in the 8th or at the end of the 9th round, Kevin Mitchell would be world champion. But I think in Victor Lothran's mind, he was also thinking, this is close and Kev's going well. I also said after the fight that 10 more seconds, which was what was left in the round, the doctor would have 100% stopped that fight on a cut, or on the lump, and it would have gone to scorecards, and Kevin Mitchell would have been the new world champion. Someone pointed out quite rightly that it would have been a 10-8 round, and the judges had him 4 rounds up, or no, 6 rounds up, which was much too wide, 2 rounds up, and all square. The 2 round up would have then been a draw, would have been a majority draw. Linares would have retained the title. So, didn't make me feel as bad. Kevin Mitchell got in the ring after the fight. I'll never forget it. He looked at me and he was like, couldn't even see. Now I spoke to him this morning actually. He said, he hit me with the right hand. He said, and I couldn't see. He said, so he couldn't see out the whole of that eye. He said, and the pain from the swelling was so bad, he just thought to himself, if he hits me on that again, I could lose my eye. And that's what he said to me this morning. But when I got in the ring, he came up to me and he went, I'm so sorry. I was like, are you off your head? You're so sorry. Mate, that was one of the most bravest performances. But not just brave, technically brilliant. Do you know what I mean? When you watch it back, he was always in control. Even when he was getting set upon by Linares, he was catching shots. He concentrated so hard. And it hit, Tony Sims really hard, that defeat. We were running this morning, he couldn't stop talking about, I'm so gutted, would have been this. And you can't look back in life, it's happened. You've got to take the positives. The positives are, in my opinion, Jorge Linares is the best lightweight in the world right now. Kevin Mitchell was winning that fight. So, let's move on. Kevin Mitchell, since that fight, has been in the gym every day, which actually is mad, and he needs to go on holiday. But, I said to him, fighters grow up. I've seen it so many times. You get to a stage, it's not just fighters, it's people. And I said to Kev today, he went, so what are you doing down here? He went, what else am I going to do? I said, I don't know. He went, well, just sitting at home, aren't I? He said, it's either that or you're down the pub. I go, I don't want to go down the pub. He said, I don't want to do, you don't drink? Yeah, so I've given up drinking. Don't want to drink. Just want to train. Want to win a world title. This is Wednesday, after what happened to him on Saturday night. But that's when fighters change. Even Kell Brook, oh Kell, you need to have a couple of weeks. He's in the gym on Monday. Frankie Gavin I spoke to today. He said, I just want to get back in the gym. He said, I'm not bothered about going out and having a drink. And that's when you just grow up and you mature and you know what you want in life. And Kevin Mitchell has just turned it around with enough time to achieve in the sport. And it's all about having the right people around you. Do you know what I mean? It's like Kevin Mitchell lives for boxing now. It's all he knows. Couldn't do anything else. So he just says, look, I just want to get my head down and provide for my family. That's when your priorities change in life, because 3 years ago all he was interested in was having a laugh and going out with his mates, you know.
Anthony Joshua versus Kevin Johnson. Just so much obviously was said by Kevin Johnson, and then he subsequently retired after.
Maybe.
Well, so he said. So we'll see what happens with that. But wanted to see really, not whether he could beat Johnson, whether he could stop him, how many rounds would it go. That was the big talking point. Stopped him in 2 rounds quite brutally, really.
It's quite, not sad, but you get to know Kevin Johnson, and actually he's a lovely fella. I mean, you know, he's mad, and he knows how to sell a fight, and he definitely, you know, he wanted to be competitive in that fight. He was trying, and it was quite sad to see him after the fight, because he was sort of in the ring, and he looked like he just didn't know what just happened. You know, no one's ever done that to him before. When you get hit by Anthony Joshua and you get stunned, that is when it's over, because he's on you, and you can't hit him back. Like, you're not a lightweight who's riding shots and waiting to counter. You're just under attack, and the shots are raining in so quickly. You can't try and throw one back. It's like, you know, and people will find this out. People will probably say, yeah, but it's because he's boxing X, Y, Z. It's not going to change. Obviously, people are going to be more difficult to beat, but I can't see anything different happening. You know, we talk about, you know, Manuel Char, Tony Thompson, Dylan White, Derek Chisora type. I can't see anything different happening in any of those fights than what we're seeing at the moment. Might take a round or 2 more, but Joshua's getting better and better and better. And the bad news for heavyweights is he's 100% focused. It's not like, I sat down with him yesterday for 3 hours, and he is so on it, I can't even explain. And he's so focused, and he's not believing any of this hype. It's not, did you see the reception I got? Did you see the not? It's like, I've got a long way to go. Everything's on track, but I've got to keep winning, I've got to keep working hard. That's it. You can't be beaten. When you've got the ability that he's got, if you've got that mindset, I said in the press conference after, the only person that can ruin or derail Anthony Joshua is Anthony Joshua. And he's not that sort of person. You know, he's got a great team around him, he's got some great friends around him, he keeps himself to himself, he trains like an animal, he's getting better and better and better. He can't be stopped.
2 things. What will be the objective of him, or the type of fight you're looking at for Manchester?
It all depends when we sign the September the 12th fight. If the September 12th fight is the fight that we think it's going to be, July the 8th will be a 10 rounder. July the 18th, yeah. And we need, I mean, there's a couple of guys out there who I think can take him some more rounds. Maybe. You know, I don't think July, like people are saying to me, why don't you make Tony Thompson on July the 18th? It's not going to be that type of fight. But it all depends on September. I'm hoping to get his September the 12th fight done this week. And if it's the fights that we're talking about, that we've just, you know, the names that we've just discussed, July the 18th won't be that kind of fight as well.
Can you give us any inkling?
Well, the names, you know, the names that we're talking to, Manuel Char, Tony Thompson, Dylan, you know, Price. Not sure that'll be September the 12th, but we'll have to see what happens with him. You know, I would think you're talking about one of those guys.
So you, obviously your show at the O2 is going the same night as Mayweather's last fight as well.
Mayweather's last fight.
apparent last fight.
Yeah. Against who?
Come on to that in a minute. Okay. Kell Brook, Frankie Gavin.
Yeah.
I just want to, before we go, just touch on that fight. Obviously, you absolutely lost the plot in the post-fight press conference.
Didn't lose the plot.
You did.
No, but you know me, I wasn't out of control, was I? I mean, I knew what I was saying. It wasn't
I know, but you
I had
seemed
10 pints and I was going, oh, once it can't, you know, I just, you know, you've got all the media sitting there and it's like, why isn't Khan fight, you know, it's like, would you ask him? Then you got Ron Lewis, who I like a lot, but he's a big Amir Khan fan, saying, well, there's no excuse for it. And you know, I'm not going to start going off on this interview as well, but you interviewed Amir Khan yesterday. So did Sky, so did everyone else. They all asked him the same question. Why not Kell Brook? There's no answer. He didn't answer. I've seen your interview with him. Oh, I'm not talking about that. It's not a fight I'm interested in. Why not? Oh, well, we're looking for Mayweather. I totally understand that. You were looking for Mayweather 2 years ago. You just fought Chris Algieri. So why not Kell Brook? Oh, we're looking at the big names. Bradley. Hold up. You just turned Bradley down for a fight. I know it's an eliminator, but you still... And how's Bradley a bigger fight than Kell Brook? We're looking at Marquez. Hang on a minute. I said we're looking at Marquez for Kell Brook, and you said, oh, he's an old man. Oh, he's... So now, look, and you know, we're looking at... I mean, the only fight that... Outside of Mayweather, if Khan got Cotto, right, which I can't see happening either, or he got Canelo, or even Broner, I mean, but then at least, but it's not, it's Algeria, and who's next after that? But it's just so frustrating, Coogan, because my job is to make the big fights. So I feel like if I can't make the fights the fans want, I'm letting them down. I'm not delivering for them. And I don't want to do that, but there's only so much you can do, and it's not like with Quigg Frampton. At least we had a meeting. At least we discussed terms. At least we exchanged emails, and we knew what they want. We knew what we wanted, and we just couldn't get there. But with this, it's like, and that's why I said, if you want the bigger percentage, not a problem. If you want calm promotions, not a problem. But we can't even, it's not, you know, I sent one of their teammates a message the other day saying, look, this is after the 2 fights. Let's talk. Come on. Oh no, we're looking at this. Not now. It definitely happened, but you know, I spoke to Hamenstein. Let's make the fight. They don't. You know.
This is going to sound a bit whatever, but does it not come down to the fact that some people just don't want to work with you and they don't like you?
No, I completely disagree. These people are so hungry for a pound note and a bit of power. I'm not talking about Amir Khan, but fighters in general and teams. That's all overlooked. Of course, and there's not, regardless of what you think, I'm not overly disliked in boxing.
I didn't say you was.
By people that matter. Don't get me
yeah.
wrong, I'm sure people, they can't stand me. But I have, you know, in the past, sat down with Amir and his dad. I actually get on pretty well with Amir. And I don't think sometimes, but you know when I get to the stage of, when I go on the attack, it's over by then. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I'm ruining the chance,
Yeah,
because there is no chance.
Now, the final now.
No, but that's fine, because it ain't happening. And I've known it's not happening for 3 months, 2 months, you know. So, when there's no like, I'm not the kind of person, Coogan, you're going to ask me a question and I'm going to go, oh, you know what? Oh, I love Team Khan and he's such a wonderful fighter and we'd do anything to make that fight. Oh, and it would be an honour to fight. Why? Kell Brook's world champion. He deserves the respect too. But in the boardroom, you know, in the meetings, and I'm not, people say, oh, you've got a vendetta against Amir Khan. Watch my interviews back. I have so much respect for Amir Khan as a fighter. He's a brilliant fighter. I just want him to fight Kell Brook And people say, the only thing I'll say about your comment is that you do get certain people who say, well, we don't want it, we don't want you calling the shots, you Eddie Hearn. But I'm not asking to call the shots. All I'm asking to do is to sit down and find out what you want. All you can do is, listen, if it's 100 million, just tell me. And we can try and make it happen. If we can't, we can't. But unfortunately for these people, I have an exclusive deal with Sky Sports. If they want a box on pay-per-view in the UK, I have that ability, and I'm the only person. So I'm not saying no. I'm just saying, let's work together. We'll all make a lot of money, but even better, we'll give the public what they want. So, you know, I'm definitely. I think what I'm saying now, and what I have saying, and what I said at press conference, I really don't think that's helping. But we get to a stage where it ain't happening anyway. So, but I can't do it, Coogan. I can't sit there and play ball and not tell the truth, because I'm dumbfounded myself. So, and people ask me, and it's not like, oh, you're always talking about Khan. I'm happy not to talk about him. But it's the first question Kell Brook's asked, and it's the first question Amir Khan's asked. So
sorry, somebody, I remember wrote a tweet, I read it, and I just, I see what you think about it, so you probably have seen it as well. Someone said, like, 3 probably of the biggest fights that can be made with our fighters that haven't been made, the Gale Groves, Quigg Frampton, Brook Khan, and they, in their opinion, the common denominator why the fight is happening is you.
The common denominator why the fight hasn't been made is they couldn't agree a financial deal that both parties were happy with. If we would have turned around, Carl Frampton wanted 70-30. That was all that was ever discussed in a meeting, right? To fight Scott Quigg. Now, when all the dust is settled, apparently he just wanted 60-40. If that was the case, and we went to Carl Frampton and said, okay, Scott Quigg will take 40% to fight you, that fight would have been made, right? George Groves against James DeGale, that really didn't get off the ground. You know, we made them an offer of 50-50. He wanted 70-30 or 75-35 to fight for a vacant title. I mean, James just said, you're having a laugh. Kell Brook is not even getting off the ground. They just don't want the fight. And I don't believe it has anything to do with me. They just don't want to fight Kell Brook. They're not even considering it. So the answer is, a deal couldn't be reached. It doesn't really matter about me. I don't think they like me. But with Cyclone Promotions, there was a deal to be done, but it wasn't the right deal for Scott Quigg. Scott Quigg wouldn't accept that deal. So we went back and we said, we'll do the 60-40, but it's to the winner. And they wouldn't accept that. Okay, we'll do 50-50. They wouldn't accept that. We just couldn't reach a deal. If we could, the fight goes ahead. I don't think we would have held hands and done ring of roses, but we just would have got on with it. And like I said, I mean, look at Froch Grove. Froch Groves 2 was the hardest deal I ever had to do. The hardest deal, bar none. We were 1 week away from going to purse bids. So, we're in a situation where anyone can get the fight. It's okay. Carl Froch, probably wouldn't have earned as much money in the end, but would have still made a huge amount of money. But to be in a position, and no one hated me more than George Groves, because he felt Carl Froch was my man, and he didn't want to talk to him, So in the end, that was the hardest deal I've had to do, but it was the right deal for both fighters. They both made fortunes, so you get it done. It's business. It doesn't matter whether a sponsor could come onto you, Coogan, who you think is the biggest knob you could ever meet, and you cannot stand him. But you know what? Quite enough paying you a lot of money in sponsorship. What do? You swallow it and you get on with it. And you go to work and you make your day. Bottom line. Right? True story. So, all it is the right deal can't be done. And generally, actually, the common denominator is probably ego. I don't, when a deal is put to, say for instance with Quick-Frampton, it's not Eddie Hearn says no, it's right. This is what they've come back with. Scott, lawyer, manager. What do you think? No, okay. Ask me for my advice, happily give it. But, I just think sometimes, and when you get the bigger the fight, the bigger the problem in terms of making a deal. But the Khan Brook situation is totally different. It's not even, I offered them $5 million for the fight. That was before Kell Brook was champion. And it was like, no thanks. Blimey, okay. Now it's like, do you want to sit down and talk? No, we're not interested in that fight. Okay, do you want to even let me tell you how many millions you can make for that fight? No, we've got other plans, we want Mayweather. Okay, and that's it. So, tell me you want 80-20, tell me you want whatever, tell me. The worst thing we can do is say no. Does not want that fight with Kell Brook, because the bigger it gets and the more attention it gets, if he lost that fight, and I said in the postcard press, it's a 50-50 fight. I back my man every day of the week. He could lose, Kell Brook. But if Kell Brook knocked Amir Khan out, that's the difficult thing to deal with, and that can happen.
Okay, I want to come to Lee Selby in a minute, but as regards to Kell Brook fighting in August, moving forward.
Yeah, what we're doing at the moment is Kell's had he's had huge rehabilitation after the injury, and then he fought Jojo Dan. Then he had 2 or 3 days off, and then he started his camp again, straight into Frankie Gavin, another 8 weeks. Now, if he fights on August the 29th, which is the proposed date, it only really gives him, he's going to go away this weekend, and it only really gives him 10, 11 weeks. What we're dealing with now is just to make sure that he can have the freshness of having 3 back-to-back camps to perform in the right way against someone like a Brandon Rios, who will be absolutely relentless. So we're just seeing and speaking to his training team, his strength and conditioning team, his nutritionists, to make sure that he can be 110% for that date, and whether he'll need a couple more weeks to make sure he will be.
Okay. What sort of feedback have you had regarding Brandon Rios?
They want the fight. They want more money than we've offered. Strangely enough, we've offered a lot of money, in my opinion. A deal with purse, including US TV, which I know what US TV will pay, and it's massive money for him. But he's very well paid over there. He's had a couple of big paydays against Alvarado and Pacquiao. I expect if that's the fight we choose, that fight could be made this week.
What sort of feedback have you had from the outside public? You've mentioned Rios several times.
Yeah, I think pretty good. I think he's a big name. I don't think he's not Mayweather or Pacquiao, obviously, but he's a big name in America. Obviously it'll be live on HBO, and I think stylistically he's fun. He's a quality fighter. He's chatty. He fancies the job. So does Robert Garcia. I like the fight. I've always said after the Jojo Dan fight, I like the Rios fight. I think it's a big fight, and I think Kell can make a statement in that fight. I think it's the type of fight he needs.
Will this be Brook's last fight of the year? Will he fight in the Winter?
No, I think he'd go again.
December.
We'll have a mandatory at some point. The mandatory won't be due till February or March next year, but you'll get to a certain point.
Who's currently the mandatory?
No one. They're waiting on a final eliminator. The 2 that have accepted are Diego Chavez and Devon Alexander, but Sean Porter and Tim Bradley accepted before that, and then they chose other options. So at the moment it's Chavez against Devon Alexander to become Brook's mandatory.
Be interesting if it was Alexander. Full circle.
Yeah, that wouldn't go. I mean, 6 or 7 rounds with Kell Brook, in my opinion. There you go, Chavez is a good fight.
Who fought Bradley?
Yeah, we looked at that fight before we decided, or well, we had to in the end because of the date, take the mandatory of Jojo Dan. Chavez was on the list. I think it's a good fight. Tough, huh?
Right, Lee Selby. Is he the first ever world champion from Barry?
I would have thought so. Might have been the first ever boxer from Barry, I don't know. But just, I always knew how good Lee Selby, or thought I knew how good Lee Selby was. But it's till you get in deep at that level, you can really show. And the performance on Saturday was one of the best in the British ring, I think. You know, I think Gradovic's style ended up being perfect for Lee as well. But there's not a lot of styles that aren't because he's so good. Just bashed him one every round. I saw that Gradovic's manager said that he thought that Gradovic was winning the fight. I mean, I didn't give him a round, personally. I think only one judge gave him a round or something like that. 2 judges gave him 1 round. Just brilliant. I remember when Marty Lindsay, who was fighting for us, was on Frampton against Martinez, our show in Belfast, boxed Lee Selby for the British and Commonwealth title. And I was in the ring with Martin Lindsay, and Selby walked second because he was a champion. I looked round, and he played that, you know, he's got that lifestyle of the poor and dangerous, that track. And he just came out, and everyone was booing the life out of him. And he was like, and I thought, God, he's got some confidence. And I watched there a 12-round exhibition from Lee Selby. And after that, we signed him. And when I signed him, there's one person in particular, Dave Colbert, I've been watching Dave, who said to me, God, you signed Lee Selby, you know. Apparently he did a show in Newport and sold like 30 tickets. I said, I know, but Dave, he can really fight. And even like the journey so far, you know, we took him to Blackpool, Hull, the O2, back to Cardiff. There's been a lot of investment in Lee Selby, but I've always believed in him. And now, thankfully, on Saturday night, that came true. And I can't wait for the future because I think you have a fighter there that's good enough to unify the division.
So many good fighters.
Brilliant division.
Lomachenko, Waters, Harry Russell,
Jr. Daenerys moving about Super Bantam, but I think, you know, the plan, I think we need to go back to Cardiff in September. I think we need to build Lee Selby further in Wales, and I think we'll do that very well on the back of that performance.
Warrington?
I think Warrington's a fight for next summer. Ellen Road. Josh, we've got some really interesting opponents for Josh Warrington in September, and it's going to be tough fights, so he's got to step up and win those. But he's at world level now, and the Selby-Warrington fight is an obvious fight to make, but I think Warrington needs certainly another 2 fights before he takes that fight. Yeah, I'm sure he can be competitive now, but you want him 100% ready for a fight like that, and I think by next summer, I think he could be.
Just to recap on some of the other fights from Royal Britannia, obviously Scott Cardle winning a British title against Craig Evans, also John Ryder suffering a defeat to Nick Blackwell. Thoughts on those? I
thought Cardle was great. Evans is very awkward, good fighter, very technically good fighter, and Cardle just, I did sort of 4 or 5 rounds to Cardle. When the final bell went, I sort of went to everyone, oh, he's won that, and they went, oh, it's close. Gave it to Cardle by 1 or 2. I thought, really? I scored it a bit different in that, but I think the scoring was right, 116, 112. Brilliant for Scott. I think Scott's the kind of fighter that, and when you look at the options for a British champion in the lightweight division, who are they?
Yeah, there's a lot of them are sort of...
Yeah, but they're beyond, yeah. So, level, yeah. But I think with Cardle even, you can push him onto European quite quickly. He's got an awkward style. I think he's underrated, Scotty Cardle. Ryder was really weird. I mean, we're trying to get to the bottom of what happened, but basically for 4 rounds, he was absolutely bossing Nick Blackwell and just punch perfect. And then he got to the end of the 4th round, and Tony, his legs went. and he was like someone just stuck a pin in him. And he came out for I think the 5th or the 6th, and he had nothing in his punches. He got, every time he got pushed back, his legs were going. Whether it's the weight, whether he overtrained, whether it was nervous energy, I don't know. But I'm not taking anything away from Nick Blackwell, by the way. It was a great win for him, but I don't know what happened, and we've got to get to the bottom of it because he can't be moving up to super middleweight. He's not big enough. And that was although I say it was a shock, he was the favourite in the fight, but only a small favourite. But the way he boxed for the first 4 rounds was fantastic, and everything was hunky dory. And then Tony said he came back to the corner and he was like, John, he was exhausted. So I don't know. And John Wayne Hibbert against Dave Ryan, which got a lot of time for Dave Ryan, and Clifton and Simon, and he's 100% come the hard way. Massive win against Tyrone Nurse. Then was due to fight Bradley Saunders, massive underdog in that fight. Bradley broke his hand. Then he fights John Wayne Hibbert, big underdog in that fight. Gets decked twice, comes back to stop him. The cuts definitely didn't help John Wayne Hibbert. But Dave Ryan is a big light welterweight. And we'll look to make the Bradley Saunders fight now in September. And that's a good fight. But coming back from injury, that's a tough fight for Bradley Saunders. Dave Ryan's confidence is through the roof right now. And what a division. We've got Jenkins against Nurse on July the 18th. British champion going to come through that. And if it's Jenkins, he can box again in Cardiff if we go there. And if it's Tyrone Nurse, he can box again in London or Sheffield or Leeds. So that division domestically is on fire.
Nathan Cleverly with a 24-second win.
I said to him, I went into his changing room and obviously he was floating on the night. And for those who don't know, basically when a fight goes short, you just stick that one in and it's a 6 rounder. I went into his changing room, I said, Nathan, do me a favour, go in there and look sensational tonight. Just let your hands go and enjoy yourself. Well, 26 seconds later it was all over. Hit the geezer with a cracking body shot and that was it, KO'd. So we've been talking about the Bramer fight. We had a couple of big offers from America as well for him, and from Al Heyman's team. So we'll make probably an announcement on Nathan next week. But either way, he'll be fighting for a world title or huge fight in America next. In a great position.
Just a word on the debutant Lucian Reid.
Really good. Really enjoyed it. Did you see it?
Yeah, it's alright.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
In the last round. Yeah.
Great amateur pedigree. Very explosive, switch hitter, punches with both hands. Was in with just your typical journeyman, but who doesn't really get stopped, and got him out of there in the last round. So really good performance, good support, and we've got a lot of young kids coming through from London. Jake Ball, who we're going to be working with, Reece Bellotti, who debuted the other night, really exciting. Lucian Reid, and they'll box on the September 12th card as well at the O2.
Okay. Just a word, obviously. Kell Brook said in an interview the other day that he'll give an announcement regarding his future coming up soon. So, do we know?
I think next week you'll get that. I think he's still mulling things over. I think it's been over a year now, and my gut feeling, which I think we done an interview a couple of months ago, and I said I don't think he'll fight again. That's what I. If I was to have a gamble up with you and say, what does your heart tell you? My heart tells me that it's the end of the road. It does. And I felt like that particularly 3 or 4 weeks ago. But then this Golovkin thing started, and he fancies that fight. But I don't know whether it's come 2 years too late, or certainly a year too late. I know everyone would be gutted if Kell Brook retired, because I know he gets his fair share of stick, but let's be honest, in terms of entertainment, it's tough to beat, isn't he, in that respect? But whatever he chooses to do, he'll make that decision with his family, and but he's the only one really that can make that decision, and he'll know in his heart of hearts what he's got left in the tank. Not really, well, physically as well, but you got to. Sound cheesy, but you've got to dig into your soul as a fighter. It's not like you can just go in there and just say, "Oh, I'll just go." I'm only 60%. I'm not really up for it, but if you're fighting someone like Golovkin, if you haven't got the ability to dig deeper than maybe you've ever had to dig before, then you can't go into that fight. And I'm just not sure with everything he's achieved, with the money he's earned, with the legacy that he's created, whether he has that desire to, you know when, it's all on top in a fight and you're tired and you're hurt and maybe you take one in the ribs and you're sort of thinking, I don't need this. And you can't have that situation arise in a fight like that. Do you know what I mean? I know you're upset because you want to see him fight Golovkin, but you've got to do what's right. You can't, it's not a sport you can mess around at, You can't take risks and go into fights at that level where you're just not up for it. And it's not, there's a fortune on the table to fight Gennady Golovkin, but that's not even, I said to Kell Brook, I think we were driving home from the Andre Ward fight, or we were going to the airport, and he was obviously gutted. And I said, you know what? I said, it all starts now. I said, we're going back to Nottingham, we're going to have a big fight, and I'll tell you what, if I don't make you £10 million by the time you retire, I won't be a happy man. I mean, blimey, we've smashed that to bits, but it used to be, you could have, in the past, you could have motivated Kell Brook by money, You could have said, Carl, I've seen the money on the table for this fight. Now it's not about the money. So what else motivates him? Legacy? Got one, hasn't he? Let's be honest. Stop being such a mercenary and understand what I'm saying.
I'm not, I'm just...
I know you. Everyone wants him to fight because he brings entertainment. He brings great fights, but I look at it more as his mate. Right? I want him to fight, make a nice few quid. But at the same time, I don't want him to... When you leave boxing, any boxer will tell you, I've seen it over the years. A fighter that leaves the sport unhappy, it's a horrible life to lead. Do you know what I mean? But a fighter that leaves the sport happy lives such a great life, And it's not like I'm just going to say to Carl when he retires, see you mate, lovely to meet you, good to work with you, take care of yourself. I will, I'll see him over the years with his kids and his, and it's nice. Darren Barker's a great example. Every time I see Darren Barker, I've got a smile on my face. You know why? Because he's got a smile on his face. You know why? Because he's paid for his house. He's got this. He's got that. He's won the world title. He's happy as Larry. And that's what drives me on to get people like Kevin Mitchell another shot. I don't want Kevin Mitchell to retire as good as he is and put as much into sport as he does without becoming a world champion. Maybe he won't do it, but I don't feel like we're there yet, And with Carl, it's almost like job done. I feel complete that everyone's done a great job. What a career you've had. And when he hangs them up, it'll be like, oh, remember that, remember that, remember that, remember that. And you know what? I'm physically 100%. I'm mentally 100%. I'm emotionally 100%. I can now go and live my life. And that is more pleasing to me than any kind of money that I could make from another one of his fights. Maybe.
Well, we shall wait and see. But
yeah.
Just had, while you were talking, an awful realisation of if you don't fight again, Froch don't fight again.
But it's the end of an era. It would be, if he didn't fight again, the end of an era. And then it's time for the new breed to step up. Kell Brook, James DeGale, Anthony Joshua, Scott Quigg, Lee Selby, Jamie McDonald. It's their turn now to go out and try and be involved in those mega fights and create a legacy for themselves. Long way to go. All have the ability to do it. Not all will, but they'll get the chance.
Okay. I don't know how long this is run for.
Sorry if you're bored.
Sorry.
Sorry about my legs.
I'm just going to mention, if you're wondering why I keep looking at the cameras, because I'm just checking it as it stopped.
That'd be good.
Yeah, it's been perfect, it's fine. Eddie Hearn, thanks for talking to IFL TV.
Thanks, and congratulations on your weight loss. 2 stone he's lost.
I thought you were going to say congratulations on something else.
Do you know, right, this is unbelievable. I weigh, me, the Adonis, 2 stone more than him. How's that possible?
I don't know.
I mean, I'm a chunky geezer, but I'm not like...
I'm like the James Elder as well. No, I thought you were going to say congratulations because we've hit 50 million.
That's really good.
50 million.
50 million views.
Overall, so it took us a year and a half when we started to get to a million.
So when you got to a million, and that took you a year and a half.
Yeah, it was like, yes.
And how long was that ago, that year and a half?
That was 2012.
So more or less 3 years, which you should have hit 3 million, because it took you a year and a half to hit. Oh yeah, I thought it was a year to hit a million actually, but you might have told a few porkies.
No, it took. I'll tell you exactly.
I think there's. I mean, you see all these, social media companies. How much is IFL worth? You probably get some crazy guy who could estimate that you might be worth £1 million, your company.
I don't know. Don't know what it's worth.
Just make it up. Cool, wasn't it? Someone said to you the other day at least 10 mil on the US stock exchange. But it has to have a massive value.
Yeah, I just kind of think as well, because someone said to that, would you sell it? I said, like, it's nothing to sell, because without me and Helder doing it.
No, but if you sold it, you'd have to be involved in the company.
But anyway, we're happy to.
It's a great achievement. I think it's a sign that it's a great indication of where boxing is. Like when you speak to Sky Sports and you speak to their .com team. You speak to their digital team, like SkySports.com, it's like football, obviously, boxing, and then Formula 1, cricket, but boxing, so I think with boxing you get much more opinionated communities and fans, and obviously we see it on social media, but I can't see that for like cricket and rugby, people literally, some people are on there all day. Talking boxing. Boxing fans are very passionate.
100% passionate. 100% passionate. Do you know what I was just thinking? October 2010 to February 2012 is when we hit 1 million views.
So in three years and 3 months, you've done 4 million.
4 million?
Yeah, because you're at 5 now, aren't you?
50 million.
50 million?
What did you think that tweet said earlier?
Yeah, I thought we were talking about 5 million. Wow.
50? I wasn't retweeted it earlier.
To be honest with you, Coogan, I wasn't really impressed. I was just going along because you obviously were happy with
50 million?
So you've hit 49 million in 3 years and 3 months.
You're a murder. You're a mess.
No, but you know why? Because
Sorry, this is what happens. The card just went full when it stopped.
So, you've done 49
Did you think
million.
I was bragging over 5 million? Like, did you think I was like going, oh look.
No, but I was just trying to be nice. But that is huge.
50 million.
That's huge, especially in relation to, obviously, the first year and a half.
That's what I was trying to explain. I'm not going to tell you what we average, but it's good.
But I see even our little interviews get 20,000.
Yeah. Do you know what? When we do too many with you, sometimes they do slow up. But generally, if you're talking about saying, I'd be disappointed if this didn't hit 20, yeah. So, it's going to get about 5.
You'll get over it though, won't you?
No, we were in panic. We were like, me and Helder constantly thinking, checking numbers. Numbers don't lie.
Sometimes I don't retweet.
Why?
Mine, if it's not a great interview, I don't bother retweeting my interview. I just retweet all the fight stuff.
That's not helping our cause.
No,
that's not.
I'd rather you listen to them.
You need to retweet things.
Okay.
Alright, Eddie, thanks for talking to IFL TV.
Good stuff.
And what are you doing now?
Nando's.
Hiya.
Cheeky.
Can't get involved. Thank you very much.